Hello, 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 and hello again. You are welcome to this channel where we inspire, inform, educate, and create awareness about different topics of life. You have been on a journey with us with our awesome lady, Dupe, and sometimes she's called Ruth. So, Dupe Ruth Bolariwa, and she's, been educating us about what we need to expect from secondary the journey on the journey from secondary school to the university, because she has been through it and she's still in it and she knows a lot. She If you've watched the first part, the second part, and now the third part, you will understand what I mean. But she's been through a journey, so she's loaded with so much information, and she wants to share her hearts with us. And before I introduce her to continue on the topic of pitfalls to avoid on the journey from secondary to university, I would like to say please continue to share, subscribe, like the videos, subscribe, like the videos, and let young ones, let the younger generation who are still trying to find their way or navigate their way in life, on what next to do, let them find this video. So share with them and let us create the kind of information we need to know before people kick off in their journey in life. And so, without further ado, without wasting much time, I call on the screen my amiable, lovable, awesome, loaded, excellent. Please give me the words. Give me the words. Write in the comment. What words do we use to qualify her? Excellent sister. You are welcome, Dupe. Thank you very much for always making yourself available.
Oh no, my pleasure. As usual, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So now, today, the third part of this series on pitfalls is we're talking about gap year and apprenticeship. This might seem like, what is gap year? Maybe they don't even know what it is in other parts of the world, but there's something called gap year on that same journey from secondary to the university. There's gap year, and there's something called apprenticeship. So could you please, let's start with gap year. What is gap year, and when is it necessary, and why do people go into having gap year? So I'll put you on the screen now, while I take myself off. Go on, share your heart with us.
Thank you. So a gap year, for those who may not know, is when you just sort of take a year off to do something else before going down the most likely the stereotypical route of going to uni. So a gap year is just a year where you take a gap off your normal plans to do something else, whether that's travel, work, or maybe take a rest for whatever personal reasons or circumstances you may have. You can use your gap year for whatever it is that you want to use it for. Um, so the thing about gap years is that most of the time, some people plan to have a gap year before they continue with whatever plan they want to follow, and some people find themselves having a gap year that wasn't necessarily planned. And I think the first thing I'll say is whether planned or unplanned, one of the most important things to do within your gap year is to keep yourself busy or occupied with something, not just to be sort of wherever the wind blows you. Sort of have, it doesn't have to be very meticulous or very detailed, but have a plan, have sort of a rough outline of what you'll be doing and a schedule at the barest minimum for your gap year. So for some people, they plan on taking a gap year, maybe to travel, to get some real world life experience, maybe see a different country. And there's certain things you can learn by traveling and visiting other places, or maybe taking even a gap year to work to earn some money or just to gain some additional skills. Some people have to take a gap year, maybe they didn't perform as well as they wanted to, and instead of maybe going through clearing, they wanted to retake their exams. That's one reason why people take a gap year. So people can use their gap year to do some revision and to go over things and obviously retake their exams. Whilst whatever reason and whatever purpose, I think it's, if even if you're going to be retaking exams, even if you're maybe don't have much planned but you just want to travel, go about, have a bit of a break between A level and uni or whatever it is, because A levels can be a very stressful experience. I think is to keep busy and to do something that will develop you, that will develop skills for you, and keep you relatively relevant in whatever field you aim to study or pursue in the future. Something that maybe you can have transferable skills in that you can talk about for when you want to go into maybe an apprenticeship, university, or even the workforce. So, for example, some people, a very stereotypical thing quite a lot of people do actually is become a tutor during their gap year. So they tutor. You can get paid for that and maybe retake exams, or you could just tutor part time and have time to do whatever it is that you want to do.
Hmm.
Not only are you earning money, you're developing a lot of key skills as a tutor. You're learning how to communicate. You're learning, also depending on what field you're tutoring, and you're learning to be adaptable. You're adapting to your students' needs. You're learning how to create a study plan and how to effectively carry it out. You're able to take information and disseminate it in the most useful and practical way to whoever you're tutoring. And sometimes, as people do tend to work in more like big tutoring companies now, you're learning how to work in a team to collaborate. So those are like little skills and things that you're learning that you may think, oh, what am I gaining from tutoring? I'm just gaining money. No, you're gaining lots of skills. If, for example, you get a part time job in a shop, you're learning customer service skills, you're learning how to collaborate with people that you work with, and depending on what area you work in, you're learning how to maybe even problem solve. If a customer has a problem, if you have a problem, or something has a problem, you'll be able to use your problem solving skills to hopefully come to a resolution. So no matter what you're doing, as long as you're keeping yourself busy and developing skills, those skills will further help you when you go on to either get another job, pursue an apprenticeship, or even at uni and further on down the line, you're just constantly developing your skills. So I think the biggest thing with a gap year is to make sure you're doing something that keeps you busy and is also enabling you to develop skills. If, for example, you're traveling, maybe you're developing language skills. You're learning how to operate and communicate in a different culture, in a different time zone, and maybe other stuff is in different time zones. You're showing how resilient maybe you are, how adaptable you are, depending on what your situation is. So I think the thing is not to constantly reiterate myself, but keep yourself busy, keep yourself in a way where you're always developing your skills. One thing you can also do is maybe take online courses. There are free websites such as stuff like FutureLearn, and even the government sometimes on the Gov website, there are certain courses that you can take online to keep yourself relevant, just learning new things. And there are, I believe, LinkedIn Learning, but I'm not 100% sure how free LinkedIn Learning is. But there's stuff you can also be doing whilst you're on your gap year, just to keep yourself relevant, keep yourself up to date. And you can also do stuff like volunteering work, very useful, very needful. And just keep yourself up to date with wider reading the book, keeping informed with what's going on um, in the current world around you. So I think yes, keep yourself relevant, keep your skills up to date. But gap year is actually a really great time. You can have a year where you don't really technically have that many deadlines, you don't really have a lot of obligations, where you can learn new things and have very impactful experiences. And I think whether when you're taking a gap year, whether planned or unplanned, how you make the most of your time will really determine how great of a gap year you have. If you are taking a gap year because maybe you didn't do well, yes, you need to revise, you need to study and hopefully perform better to get the grade that you may want to get. But don't look at a gap year necessarily as a bad thing. Think of it as an opportunity to not only improve your grades, to study and go over content, you can use it as an opportunity to build other skills where you may not have had the opportunity to build those skills because you had to go to school, maybe start learning a new language, maybe pick up a sport, and that's something that can even follow you throughout the rest of your life and also for your career in the future. So I think a gap year is a very useful thing to have, and what you do with it, how you spend your time is really impactful. I will always say Most people don't want to take a gap year sometimes, but regardless, I think everyone should just sort of plan for a gap year. Think, if I was to take a gap year, what would I do? How would I do it? And how would I go back? So, worst case scenario, you have like contingency plans. And if you do find yourself having to take a gap year that you did not want to take, you can always refer back to those plans, back to those ideas, and have sort of an outline that you can use to guide yourself. That's the thing I'll say about gap years. They're very useful. People don't realize because you have like just a period of time where you don't really have a lot of time pressures on you. So I think it's a very useful thing to have, and if you utilize it properly, it can be a very wonderful, impactful experience. Should I move on?
Sorry, I think I was mute there. I was saying something. I said, yeah, thank you. Gap year gives you the time you need to do so you don't burn out from going to university straight out of secondary school or high school. So that's something in maybe is it our culture? Is it our thinking? You just want to, oh, let me just do this. Let me just get there on time. I just want to finish. I want to graduate on time. I want to finish education and keep it aside. So we don't tend to realize that, while you're on a roller coaster, sometimes you need to take a break, step back, look at what you've done, see how it will help you in the future. And that's why we have a marathon, more like a marathon in our education in different parts of the world. We just want to get it done, bag the certificates, go on to the next one, the masters. After the masters, you do the PhD, you go on, you keep running like that. I think we need to take a step back, and a gap year, I think, will really be nice for people to think about what they want to do in the future. Think about your next step. That is what makes people make informed decisions regarding the future, rather than running into something and then you feel, oh, it doesn't work. Then you run out of it again. You're looking for something else. So yeah, I think it's a very good initiative for whoever it is that brought up that gap year initiative. I think they thought it through. So thank you very much. So the gap year is not necessarily a bad thing. It's something we all need to also think about in our journey from secondary to university. Thank you very much. I know people who have taken gap years. I think it ended up going well for them in terms of the way they thought about life, the way they came out from the other end, the mature way of thinking. And I think it was a blessing for those I know who have been through gap year. They look back now and say, thank God I had a gap year. So yeah, it's something to look out for. Thank you very much. Now we go on to, so viewers, if you're watching, thank you. I know there's so many people who have come on and off. If you're watching, please write a comment down below, share, like the video, and let's get the word out there for people who are still on a journey from secondary to university. They need some of this information so that they don't start panicking if things don't work out the way they planned it. Life happens. I always say that life happens. Nobody plans for some things that happen, but when you're informed, when you're equipped with all the information you need, you don't need to panic. You just know, okay, it doesn't work this way. Let's go that way. Or plan B, or whatever name you will call it. So thank you very much, viewers. Just please write a comment and let's encourage Zikwe for doing this to the world, informing us and inspiring us, especially the younger generation. Now we go on to the next one, apprenticeship. This is another one that people don't. Oh, apprentice, no, I don't want. Some are like, oh no, 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 and some are like, oh, I wish I had known. I've seen people who said, if I had a second chance with my children, I would want them to do apprenticeship. While some are like, no, I wouldn't want to go down that route. Or so, what is apprenticeship in the first place? Because I know the government at the moment in the UK, they're pushing for apprenticeship everywhere. And, so I think you'll be able to tell us why we think apprenticeship is something to look at as well as an option. Thank you.
I think apprenticeships do not get as much credit as they could in some certain people's opinions. Apprenticeships are just like, how do I say this? apprenticeships are an opportunity for you to learn and earn at the same time. That's the way I see it. Pardon me. I think apprenticeships are great because not only are you learning something, but you're also sort of doing it in real time. So you're getting real work experience, real experience, real time experience. You're not waiting until you've already gotten your certificate or whatever qualification that you're working towards. You're gaining experience straight away. It's first hand experience. You're also earning a qualification at the end of it, and you're earning. So I think apprenticeships are a really good deal package. They dependent also, I think, also depends on what you want. Some people want to go out there and earn and get a job as quickly as possible, but they also want an opportunity to get a qualification for maybe future career progression. If that's the case, apprenticeships, I believe, really are the way to go. Just to signpost you to the government website and also UCAS, you can find a myriad of apprenticeships using the UCAS website and also the government website. If you're sort of stuck on where to start with apprenticeships, they tend to have things listed on there. Just type in a keyword that you're looking for, whatever area, and they will give you sort of a deadline on when to apply, also what you could earn and the skills you need and the qualifications you can earn at the end of it. Some apprenticeships are 1 year, some apprenticeships are 2 years, three. It really just depends on the apprenticeship. I think some people also don't realize how competitive apprenticeships can be, just as applying to university, maybe even more so because there are less apprenticeships of spaces in comparison to university spaces. That's not to say you can't get one or, oh, it's very competitive, why should I apply? No, no, no. Still apply if that's what you want to do and that's the best path for you. But I don't want people to sort of discount apprenticeships. I think the very good thing about apprenticeships is that you get practical experience. Unlike with university, you're sort of studying it theory. You're not necessarily really applying what you're learning straight away until you've graduated and until you've gotten a job, or if you're lucky enough to get an internship whilst at university. But with an apprenticeship, you're having that practical experience, that practical application from the get-go. You're meeting people already in the industry who can lead you, guide you, and give you advice, maybe even mentor you if you're very lucky enough. Um, I'll say the thing about apprenticeships is that you have to do your research, and some of them, the application deadlines are very quick, or you don't want to end up missing an application deadline. So I think they're great because many of them offer a earn as you learn sort of scheme, and it's great. You're earning money and you're having I don't know. I feel like apprenticeships just sound very ideal. I think it also depends on what you want to get out of life. If you want the opportunity to earn relatively quicker, I would probably say maybe an apprenticeship is the way to go because you're being paid. It's not always a very large amount, but you are sort of earning a stipend. You're learning the skills and qualifications that you need, and majority of them, most apprenticeships, not all, sometimes may lead to a permanent position depending on which company your apprenticeship is attached to. The only thing I would say about apprenticeships, just like with applying for whatever uni course you may be applying to, is look at the qualification that you may get at the end of it and think about possible career progression depending on whatever field that you're trying to get the apprenticeship in. Obviously, you'd have learned and you'd have gained multiple transferable skills that can help you move from field to field. But if, for example, um, you want an apprenticeship in finance and then the kind of qualification or where you want to be, let's say in the next 10 years, you need certain qualifications. Think about, okay, if I get this apprenticeship and I'm qualified with this, will this allow me to end up going somewhere and ending up with that future career that I want? Obviously, I think it's a little bit much for me to say at the age of 16, know what you want to do and know exactly what it is, have like a 10-year plan. It's very unrealistic for me to say that. But what I would say is just most of them have career progression. So just have a look at it and think, hmm, if this is where I want to go, how would this help me? It's not
Mm.
set in stone. You can do an apprenticeship and then later go on to do something else. You can do a myriad of things after your apprenticeship, and maybe even more things because you've also earned money that you can use maybe towards going to uni or traveling, applying. Like you can use it towards many things. So I think the greatest thing I'll say about apprenticeships is that one, you're earning money whilst you're learning. It's almost like you're being paid to learn to a certain extent. And in comparison to going to university, depending on also how you pay for uni, you're not going to necessarily come out with a student loan.
Mm.
You're debt free and you have a qualification. I think that's the thing people don't realize about apprenticeships. And
Mm.
apprenticeships can lead to a great full time position.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing people need to really remember about apprenticeships. They're just as competitive as applying to university, maybe even more so.
Mm.
So if you're going to apply, you have to be on your A game with certain apprenticeships. And I think the other thing I'll say with apprenticeships is that depending on also the area you want to go into, I'll say an apprenticeship may be the more practical choice for some people. So, for example, let's say you want to do something with um, maybe media. I'm not 100% well versed in this area, so do take what I say with a pinch of salt. But with knowing how to use certain media packages, knowing how to use certain apps, and learning those on the go practical skills with an apprenticeship, once you're done and you've got your qualification, versus certain media going to uni to study media, in my personal experience, I will most likely want to take the person with the apprenticeship because not only do you have the theoretical knowledge, you've had to apply it almost every single day. You've had to do something, and you tend to have sort of a portfolio of experience that you can say that, yes, I know how to use this, and here is my experience. And I think that's the thing a lot of people forget is
Mm.
sometimes education is great, qualifications are great, but sometimes experience is what is really needed. So apprenticeships give you that qualification, that education with the experience, and with the lovely opportunity also sometimes to earn money as well. So I do think a lot of people do need to go more into it. It's more,
Mm.
I think it's easier for you to also, um, I feel like when you have an apprenticeship, it's not like you're waiting for life to start. Life has already
Mm.
started for you. And I
If
think if you're a person who already knows what you kind of want to do,
yeah.
and you're a forerunner, you're a go-getter, I will also say maybe do an apprenticeship because you're studying there, doing uni, doing exams, you're on it. You're already moving, and to a certain extent, you'll be because you'll be experiencing things in real life, sometimes you'll be gaining skills that maybe some of your cohort who went to university may not even have the opportunity to get because they're not experiencing everyday day-to-day life in that field.
Mm.
So I'll say
Let me
apprenticeship,
ask a
a lot of
question.
people need to join.
Yeah, sorry, let me ask a question there. But before I do, thanks to Speaking Grace TV for joining us here and giving very lovely comments saying, oh, hello, and it's a beautiful discussion, it's very insightful. Thank you very much for always being here. Thank you for supporting. And now, at what stage do people do apprenticeship? Is it after secondary school? Is it after A levels? Or is it at what stage? Is it any stage? I know you've told us about going into UCAS, and if I go there again, I'd actually like to go there again. How do at what stage you need to start applying for apprenticeship? Is it, I don't know. So can you please
Um,
have information about that?
so the thing about apprenticeships is that for some apprenticeships, depending on what it is, you can start from once you've left secondary school, because there is a law that says that you have to be in education up until you're 18 or in an apprenticeship.
Correct.
So if you've done your GCSEs and you thought, actually, A levels are not right for me at this point in time, and you sort of do know where you want to go, an apprenticeship, some apprenticeships you can go straight from GCSEs.
Mm.
However, that being said, there are some requirements for certain apprenticeships, and some of them will prefer it if you do have A levels. So you can also apply for an apprenticeship once you've finished your A levels. So if you whilst everyone is doing uni applications, you'll be doing apprenticeship applications. It's not better or worse, it's just you're applying. So you can either do it from straight from GCSE or after you've done your A levels. For certain fields where there's certain accreditations, sorry, that word always trips me up. Um,
Accreditation, yeah. Yeah.
they may want you to have A levels and further studies in that sense, because there's a certain level of maybe mathematical skills required, or a certain level of analytical reasoning or writing skills that they may require of you. Also, because if you're also certified by an awarding body, there's a certain like maybe level they want you to be able to do things at. So I will say the best time to go for apprenticeship, I would say, is maybe after your A levels. But not everyone takes the most conventional route, and it's not bad or worse. It's just different. Some people may want to go for an apprenticeship straight after they finish their GCSEs, and that is
Oh.
perfectly fine. But one thing I have noticed is that people who sort of go for an apprenticeship straight away, I think people who sort of really know what they want to do, and they've
Mm.
looked at the different routes there, and they're sort of playing to their strengths and skill sets. So if you're that kind of a person, and you feel that maybe further study is not for you in the sense of conventional education in a school, apprenticeships may be a bit more better for you. So most of them you can, some of them you can't. You can start from GCSEs, but for some of them, most of them now they do want you to have A levels,
Mm.
A level qualifications as well. So you'll be
Okay.
applying to them at the end of college or sixth form.
Wow. Well, good to know. Thank you very much. Because I would have thought you would normally do it just after secondary school, but now you've said many organizations will want you to have A level certificates and all that before. And then, I mean, before you go into apprenticeship. So that's very enlightening to hear that even the government is pushing people, because I think it's underrated. It's when you think of the pros and cons, I think you have more pros than the cons. Some people might say, oh, why introduce a child too early into getting money for themselves? They end up forgetting about education, and they're half baked. Some have the opinion that, oh, why not? Because that is all life is about. It's about making ends meet at the end of the day. So you want to start now, and you're learning from it and getting what you need from life through it. Why not? So there are different opinions to that. But I think from what you've said, from what you've inspired us to hear, I mean, from what you've spoken about apprenticeship, I think is something to think about for people who are still in the process of thinking, what do I do next after secondary school? And I'm looking at jobs like I know, like software engineering. You don't want to just do theory and not even know how to actually develop a software and be marketable and all of that. So the things that are actually hands-on, that are practical, you don't want to start learning theories about them. Hairdressing, plumbing, I don't think they do that in the university. I think you have to go through a different route. And this is where apprenticeship comes in. Or even and I was checking just of recent, I was checking medicine. I just thought, I was just curious, can you do medicine as an apprenticeship? And you had nursing and some other ones, the list of them. So if you are not sure about apprenticeship and you want to know more, go on the government website, gov.org, gov.uk, about apprenticeship. You see the schemes there. The government really wants people to go into apprenticeship. And you can also find information on UCAS for people who are in education already. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for enlightening us and showing us that information. Speaking Grace TV says, yeah, thank you. Yeah, he says a lot of people, young people need to listen to this. Exactly. Yeah, yes. And it's a stage where some people just get to the door of secondary school, open the door and think, what do I actually want to do in my life? They don't know because they haven't thought it through. So So having this kind of discussion will help people start thinking, okay, I could actually go down that route, or I'll go that way. If it doesn't work this way, I'll go that way. They have plans, and that's where this discussion comes in. Thank you very much. Yes, it's so true. The practical experiences matter. Yes, thank you. So, what are your final words on? We've talked about gap year, we've talked about apprenticeship, and the next time we'll be talking, this is next week, same time, we will be talking about we have reality versus ideal, student accommodation, and the common mistakes and questions people ask. So we'll be wrapping it up next week. Make sure you are there. If you haven't subscribed, if you haven't shared, if you haven't liked, this is your time to do so. And let's get the word out there so that our youths don't start going through mental breakdown, mental disorder, because they are stressed and pressured due to lack of information. That you don't need to panic, you don't need to be frustrated. If it doesn't work this way, there's still another way equally better. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. So now, do you have any final words for us before we wrap up?
I'll say only two things. Sorry, pardon me. One thing I'll say is something that you mentioned, and I'll just like to, I hope a lot of people picked up on something that you said. It was very true. A gap year is also a time for you to rest, prevent burnout, and just an opportunity for you to sort of think and plan ahead. And I think many more people should probably take it as an opportunity for yourself to mature. And I think also with that opportunity and with apprenticeships and with university, I know it's a very privileged, I think I'm very privileged to be able to say this, but I think you shouldn't just go to university because, how would I say this?
Because
Just
others
for
are doing
get,
it. Because that's the in thing. That's what everyone is doing
yeah,
in the
just
family.
because everyone is doing it. Do tailor it to what best suits you. And university, yes, it's an opportunity for you to get a degree and a qualification, but I think most people need to realize that, okay, yes, you've got your qualification and it can help you with a certain career, but it's an opportunity for more learning. So go for it if you really do want to learn more, not just because, oh, I have to do this degree and therefore I must do this and this. Sometimes going to uni for a certain career is not the only route. Like we said, apprenticeships may actually maybe a lot better and a lot more suited for you. But actually go to university if you really do want to learn. It really is an opportunity just if you really want to learn. So I think people should look at it as not just a way for me to get a job, but for me to really learn something. Unless you're doing something like wanting to become a doctor, then you have no other choice. But I think you shouldn't take it just, oh, this is the status quo, I must tick all these boxes in a conventional way. It's no, let me look at my options and do what's best for me. You said something about it being a marathon. 100%. It's not a race of who gets there first. It's how am I going to do this? What is the best route for me? Yeah. I really loved when you said this. It's very true, very good. And people need to stop like pushing and rushing to get to somewhere where they're not even sure they want to be, because you will end up with disappointment and burnout, and you don't want that to affect you in your future. So
True. I'm just typing. Take a break. I just want to put that because you kind of reiterated that. So saying education is not a marathon, you can take a break. That's where the gap year and the apprenticeship comes in. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Viewers out there, if you're listening, write a comment, like, share, and let people out there know that there are different routes to, or Americans will say routes. Okay, routes or routes to get into your destination. It doesn't have to be a straight jacketed kind of route or a tunnel view kind of. You can diversify. One more question, actually, that just came to my mind now. People who go through apprenticeship, I know that let me ask you so that I don't put words in your mouth. People who go into apprenticeship, do they still have qualification? Can they still have university qualifications if they want to?
So once you've done your apprenticeship, and you're obviously earning towards a qualification, you will have a qualification. It's not the same thing as having a degree from a university. They are different, and for some places, they're not as equally weighted. So I think that's one thing to take into account. Some places, as long as you're able to show competency for your future job, that's all they really want. So you will have a degree, you will have a qualification, so you'll have a qualification at the end of it, but it's not necessarily the same thing as a degree from a university. And even with degrees from universities, there are slight differences between, for example, like a bachelor's of science and a bachelor's of art. That being said, um, some universities, some places that hire, they know that people maybe went down the apprenticeship route, so they'll give you an opportunity when you're listing your qualifications to be like, oh, do you have like a bachelor's, or do you have a level 4 qualification in something, or a level 5 qualification in something else. They'll give you they sort of equally weight it in some places, not seen the same, but could be weighted equally. It does depend on the employer and the role that you're going for. That being said, after you've gotten an apprenticeship,
Yeah, I think we've been talking for too long. Don't worry. We've
um,
been talking for too long, isn't it? 36 minutes is no joke without
um,
water.
after an apprenticeship, if you do decide that maybe you do want to go into higher education, you obviously can. You easily can. Some apprenticeships are actually quite flexible. So what some people do is they're doing a degree. Is okay. This is very difficult, and I personally won't recommend this for everyone because very difficult, very time consuming. But I have heard people who are doing like a very part-time apprenticeship. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. Take a break. Take a break. So, yes, viewers, if you've been listening to
Sorry.
Ross, thank you very much to Kikitoria Reality. Taraya Reality, thank you for coming on and encouraging us, saying, "Oh, yeah, we were brought here by." Thank you very much, Speaking Grace, for bringing Taraya Reality on the show. Thank you very much. It says thumbs up. Thank you. We really appreciate your presence here. It's so encouraging to know that we're not just talking to ourselves; we're talking to fellow humans, and people are learning and sharing and liking and subscribing. I really appreciate you. To be honest, I really do. So, do you want to take
Yeah.
a break? Yeah.
No,
Okay. So
I'll just
while
finish
we
off now.
round up, yes, while we round up, because we've been talking for so long, and no, I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your talent. Really appreciate you sharing and pouring your heart with us, because the younger generation need this. They need to listen to this. And sometimes we think, even older people can listen to it and share with their children, share with the next generation, or even use it for themselves. I don't know. Apprenticeship, is it for older people or younger people? Anyway,
You
well,
can
I
go
think we'll
for
talk. Over
with
to you.
apprenticeships. I think you can go at any age. It just depends on if you have the list of qualifications that they want you to have. If, like, for example, they want you to be able to have like all like C plus, C and above in maybe English literature, writing, maths, and science, depending. It just they list out what they will expect, the baseline requirements, and if you meet the requirements, you could go for an apprenticeship. So I think the thing about an apprenticeship is you can do an apprenticeship and then go into higher education if that's the route you want to go down. I have heard of people sort of doing their degree part time. So instead of you do maybe 3 years, your BSc, BA, whatever it may be, will be over 6 years. And whilst they're doing that, they're either working or some of them are also doing sort of an apprenticeship. That is very difficult. Will not always necessarily recommend that because that can get very stressful. But it is something you can do. You can do your degree part time, and whilst you're doing that, you can work, maybe do an apprenticeship, get other qualifications and other experience at the same time. And by doing it that way, you've come out with an apprenticeship qualification, you've come out with a degree, and you've come out with practical experience.
Wow. Thank
That's
you.
really
Thank
good. So
you.
it really just depends. You can go for an apprenticeship almost at any time, almost at any age.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was loaded. I think I'll let you go because I know you have things to catch up with. You have all sorts uni life to catch up with. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate you here, and
Thank you
I'm
for
so
having me.
blessed. I'm so inspired, and I'm sure that as the word goes out to people, to children, to you, even if they're in primary school, even listening to this, it could ring a bell in their minds when it's time to make that decision on what route or route, whichever wherever you're listening to us from, on how to go about navigating life. Thank you. I really appreciate you. So I'll see you next week. We'll see you next week. We will see you next week. Oh, someone here is saying, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you to Speaking Grace. Thank you to Kikitorial Reality. And thank you to as many who haven't actually commented but are listening and sharing and liking the video. God bless you. Thank you very much. God bless you. So we are at the end of this topic for today, and the topic, like we said, the topic for our whole discussion, the series is on pitfalls to avoid when on a journey from secondary to university. So we're doing our last and our final topic next week. This is the third part. We're doing the fourth part next week. If you haven't watched the video before, go back to the channel. You will see the part one, part two. Now we're in part three. We're doing part four next week. Same time next week. Thank you very much for always being here, always liking, always sharing, and for being a blessing, for supporting. You just listening and watching and liking and sharing is also a ministry. You are supporting. We are glad you are here. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.